Yeah. Occasionally they say funny stuff. I will mention them if they say give us money, but all right, I think that's going. Streaming's fine. I see the thingy there. Stream health is good. All right. That's one problem streaming Dream Daddy is that OBS, the one thing it's not good about is you set the resolution for streaming, and it's kind of a pain. You have to click a lot to change it. But when I play games, I play 16 by 10, but YouTube doesn't like it if you stream 16 by 10 to YouTube.
I always change my screen to 16 by 9 when I'm going to stream.
Yeah.
Or windowed mode 16 by 9 or something.
Yeah. Lately, I've just been, it depends. I deal with it different ways depending on
If it's a PC game, I just change one of the monitors to 16:9. And if it's on the TV, then I don't have to worry about that.
Yep. It's such a pain that when I get a new monitor, I might just get a 16 by 9 monitor and just be done with it as much as I want 10. I'm just hoping enough pixels will...
There's not a lot of 16:10 monitors available.
Nope, and the few that are cost way more than basically the same monitor, 16:9, with almost the same number of pixels.
It's just bullshit.
Yep, 1610 is a far superior format.
We should make a company that sells ridiculously expensive monitors that are like 1611, or just fucking squares. Some 1:1 monitors, and be like, yeah.
All right, I was gonna start this. It's Thursday, August 3rd, 2017. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we're talking about a big bike ride we did upstate, the Harlem Valley Rail Ride. Biking. Okay.
You don't got to use so many words. You can just be like, Harlem Valley Rail Ride. That's all you got to say. You don't got to say all that other shit.
You got to get people hype.
You can hype them up with less words.
I should go edit this and add more words. All right, start with your opening bit anytime.
So my work has been like, officially we get free breakfast every other Thursday. But I guess unofficially, but anyway, we seem to get on the Thursdays where there's no breakfast, we're getting free lunch. And the lunch is always from somewhere different. So today, the lunch was free barbecue.
Oh, from where?
From crappy old Dallas barbecue. And
its place is not the worst, but...
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, they brought in this food, and if I was going to go to a barbecue place, I would never go there, pretty much ever. There's no reason for me to ever go to that place, but...
I went there like once or twice in my life.
For $0. Zero money.
For zero money, I'll eat some barbecue chicken and cornbread.
Right? I got fried chicken. I got rib. I got cornbread. I got bean. I got shrimpies.
You got beans and cornbread.
Shrimpies. It was like, and then there were even salads that no one ate. But it's like there was so much food. It was crazy. It's like I had to use like 3 wipey things on my fingers. And now for dessert, I'm going to eat vegetable. And for breakfast tomorrow, I'm probably going to eat nothing.
I basically skipped lunch just because I wasn't super hungry because I had a big dinner and I haven't done enough exercise since the bike ride. But because of that, I was so hungry when I came home that I ate an entire ice cream sandwich like right before you arrived.
Great. Yeah, but it was interesting to see like what different people chose to eat from the barbecue. Like a lot of people were taking the fried chicken covered in buffalo sauce, which was not looking great. Whereas I took they were the messy kind of ribs.
Yep.
But it's like, some people were like sitting there with a plastic knife trying to like cut off one rib, and I'm like,
no.
I just grabbed the whole. They were like, they were already pre-cut into like, sets of like 4 rib.
So you take 4 and you just tear it apart with your hands and shove it into your maw.
Yeah, I was very difficult at my desk trying to like not touch my keyboard. Because how often do you eat barbecue at a desk with a keyboard and a mouse?
Yup.
And then the whole office smelled like barbecue sauce.
And the problem is, having just read that Prince of Nothing, all I can think about is like the grease on my fingers and getting everywhere. Because that grease.
Yeah.
Bad news.
We'll see what we get for lunch 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, we're insurance because my company, we moved offices to the Fashion District in like 7th Avenue. And it's like we're a software company and literally everyone else in our fancy building is a fashion company with like designers on Macs designing dresses and things.
Yeah, get some dresses.
I'm getting a lot of weird looks from people, like the kinds of conversations we have in the hallway, and it's interesting to be in that building. I think we're literally the only non-fashion company in this gigantic building.
Why did you choose that place then?
Plus,
I think if you're a fashion company in that building, you get like tax breaks or
So
something.
from what I
for
gather,
being in particular,
I don't know anything. I don't know for sure, but I heard because I overheard all the stuff about setting this office up that a lot of those incentives are going away or went away, and because fashion like. The incentives are not going to be there like they used to be, so there's big pressure for companies that are willing to pay a lot more money to move on to 7th Avenue now. But I don't know because I don't know a lot about real estate, so...
Yeah, but that's the thing. People, it's like, why did all these businesses go in the same district? Well, it's like sometimes it's just, convenience. Like, oh, there's the, I don't know, a bar. It's like, well, people hang out here at night, so I'll put more bars here. And then all the nighttime people hang out in this area.
Yep.
And then that's how we get more business by being all in the same area, right? We make a red light district or something. But if you have a company that's like indoors, like you're designing fashion or something, what's the point of being physically near someone who does the same thing? I guess deliveries and but it's like
Well, also remember that district. If you go to the side streets off of 7th Avenue, it's all there's all those shops that are literally just like, do you want to buy an entire bolt of a very specific fabric?
Well, that's right. Some places, like a wholesale place, will be like, aha, I'll open up near these other guys. Like this is why electronics manufacturers are all in Shenzhen, right? We're all near each other so that they can all get stuff from each other, right? I'm putting together a circuit board, but I can go to the guy who makes RAM, and I can go to the guy who makes...
Of course, even look, like in our neighborhood right here, there's 2 bouldering gyms, like a few blocks from each other.
Well, that makes no sense because they're just competing with each other.
Except the thing is, they're both completely full, like over capacity.
Well, I guess the demand is just too high.
You could probably build 2 more bouldering gyms here, and they'd also be at capacity.
But anyway, the point is, there was actually in the district, the fashion district at least, as well as many others, they specifically give tax breaks and other incentives to be there, and that's what creates the district in the first place.
Like the Diamond District and all these other districts.
I don't know if the Diamond District is that way, but the fashion district, there definitely were some kind of incentives financially. Like if you're making a fashion company and you put your office somewhere else, you're gonna be losing money.
The only thing that's
you're giving up free money.
I'm not the most fashionable dresser, but I'm far from the
wait. Kilt and toe shoe guy is not, and floppy old man hat is not the most fashionable. Hawaiian shirt is not the most fashionable
you must
dresser.
concede.
You don't say, really? I didn't know. I thought that was like peak, like like the height of all fashion. Like
but you
ready
must
for the
concede,
runway.
I am not the bottom either, because we have seen the bottoms.
Well, your clothes are at least washed when you leave the house.
But also, I don't dress that like for work. I'm usually wearing like a decent collared shirt or like a Henley or something. Like I dress up a little nicer usually. Though if I bike to work, I'm just in like biking gear because who cares? But pretty much everyone in this building who doesn't work for my company is like fashionable to the point that you're like, what? Like you look at them like, wow. And everyone is like that in this building. Literally everyone. Dude walked in, and this dude was wearing like stiletto heels, and he had like these sort of tight jeans that cropped short, and then he had a jacket, like a sport coat, and a Henley, and that's what he had on. And that sounds crazy, and if I tried to wear that, I'd look like a moron. This dude looked tight.
Why don't you ask that dude, like, hey, you're like the most fashionable person I've seen.
Make me like you. I'll do anything.
You tell me what to buy, and he's gonna be like, this jacket is $1,000. You're gonna be like, oh, never mind. And you're like, oh, and you're like, why are you wearing it? It's like, I don't pay. I'm working there.
Or he'll be like, because the $900 jacket looks like garbage.
And he's like, it's $1,000 for you.
So there's some really important news. You remember the scary stories to tell in the dark books?
Yes.
The ones that pretty much everyone who was born between like 1978 and 1984 had these books as a kid. And they're really like crappy ghost stories. Like they're not good ghost stories. They're not even scary.
Nope.
But the art in these books was like terrifying to kids.
Well, this is black and white, really creepy drawings.
But it had like this really like thin line, like creepy Cthulhu.
All right, did you find info about the artist?
No, I know all about the artist, Stephen Gammell.
Okay.
So the deal is the books got republished in the 2000s, and there was an uproar because they replaced that art because they thought it was too scary with some bullshit. So the news is, and this was posted today, this is brand new news, they're finally, due to like crazy demand from basically my generation, they're republishing these books in their original format with the original art.
I just have the books. Like I
also have the books.
Anyone wants them, I know exactly where they are. I will sell them to you for money. Are they worth a lot? I have the trilogy in the box.
I think literally everyone born between 1978 and 1984 has all those books. There's 3 of them because we got them in the Scholastic.
Are they going to be released on like Kindle or something now?
I don't know. But I feel
I'm not going to buy them or read them, but
I feel like
I would gladly sell my old ones for money.
If I were ever going to make a horror video game, I would hire this artist, like, no matter what, at any cost. Because these books, like, the art is what made them great. I was terrified. The one in particular, in the first one, Harold, that story, the one I got up here on the screen, that probably scared me the most as a kid because I had a wrestling buddy and I also had a my buddy, and I was afraid between this and Child Play that they'd wake up and kill me one day. And there's one page in the first one where like you're reading the story and you turn the page, and on the inside page when it comes around, there's Rotted Skull Lady. And the problem was because I turned the page, I was touching the Skull Lady when I turned the page. And I remember as a kid, I dropped the book.
Wash your hands.
Yep. Turn the page, shriek, wash your hands. And then take the page and show it to your brother because he's younger than you. So this is a big deal, and I'm glad it's. I feel like this.
Listen, everything old is already been. Is there anything left that hasn't been like re-released or remade from our generation yet?
Care Bears didn't get a gritty reboot.
Sure.
Teddy Ruxpin didn't come back, I don't think.
Pretty sure he never went away.
I don't know. I don't know much about Teddy Ruxpin anymore.
I don't know. I definitely heard his name recently.
But yeah, so I'm pretty excited about this.
Maybe it was the creator, oh no, that was Paddington Bear's creator, I think passed away recently.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't really know the difference between the two.
They didn't make a new David the Gnome.
I don't know. How do you know they didn't?
I assume they didn't. I mean, I'm looking it up right now. So what's your news?
So this is article on The Guardian that was actually quite fascinating. It's written by a guy named...
Oh, they're rebooting it. There's the news. They're rebooting David the Gnome. Weinstein Company's doing it.
What's the year on it?
This article's from 2015.
All
right. Spy Kids, reboot, and David the Gnome are rebooting.
All
right.
Anyway, so this article is written by someone named John Ronson, which is the most porn name I've ever heard.
John.
But anyway, it's an art because obviously people aren't making too much money with porn anymore because internet, right, is killed the market.
I mean, if someone wants generic porn, there's probably literally an infinite variety for all intents and purposes.
So this is article here about, the business of making bespoke porn, where you call them up, you tell them what porn you want to make, they give you options of like actors and, stuff.
So I'm pretty sure that's how Two Girls, One Cup got made.
They try to make the porn as specific to your, request as possible and send it to you, which is, I guess, if you're really into something weird, go for it. But this article is interesting, not for the porn part, right? Which is actually pretty much, they don't even really talk about porn much in the article because it's pretty much what you expect. Like, oh, people have a fetish, they call them up, they get porn made, all right, whatever, right? But the weird stuff is this one guy, for example, was sending in books of stamp collections. And
we must show you stamps, man.
And was like... I want you to make a video of someone stepping on these and like destroying this book of stamp collecting. And they're like, what? It's like, there's nothing porny going on in the video.
Well, it's porny for someone.
Sure, but this basically is just like a foot stepping on this collection of stamps and totally ruining it.
Oh yeah, mess up those stamps.
And it goes into this, they finally find out like what the deal is. It was one dude basically who apparently in Iceland, I think it was,
that sounds about right.
There was a fad for a period of time where everyone was super into stamp collecting, and like a whole street was just like full of stamp collecting shops, right, and stuff. And this person apparently was caught up in that fad, much like Beanie Babies, right? So this like basically the guy who has a closet full of Beanie Babies, this is the guy who has a big, huge stamp collection and is just like, why? Why do I have this?
Nah.
So he sent all his different books of stamp collections to like different people to have them. It was like more than one bespoke porn maker got this request. And they were able to find the guy and question him.
I guess it's hard to tell the line between just a bespoke film and bespoke porn.
Well, I mean, I think if you're making bespoke porn, right, you're basically, what's the difference between you and anyone else who's making bespoke film is that you're willing to make a film of anything.
True.
Whereas someone who's making bespoke films only isn't willing to do certain things, right? But if you're a bespoke porn maker, well, you can make a video of fucking anything, right?
Nope.
It doesn't matter. So if you don't care about like the artistic merit, and I'm sure they don't do like the worst job in the world, but you're not going to get an Oscar winner from them.
No.
Right? And as long as it's going to be short, they're not making you something that's like hours long. I'm sure there's some kind of limit, right? But if you want a bespoke film, it might be cheaper to call the bespoke porn people for, even though it's non-porn, they'll be like, okay.
This is easy. All right.
I mean, it's like, we're willing to like do all this other crazy shit, like, whatever. So we'll definitely do your step on a book video or, whatever it is. We don't care. But yeah,
quote, there was one guy who wanted us to buy a van and have my wife and a couple of other girls drive around in it for a week and smoke cigarettes in the van and pee in the van. At the end of the week, drive the van into the desert and blow it up. And he sent them pictures of the van. Mm-hmm. And the best part is their question to this person was, and I quote, "Why that particular van?"
He's got it. Maybe that's a van from like that the guy had in college or something. Or, it's got to be the right van.
Yeah. Let me drive my van into your heart.
I never heard that.
So you didn't watch enough Steven Universe.
No.
That's actually in like episode 2 or 3. Like that's in the beginning.
Well, I mean, I only saw the dad. I know the dad has a van. I only saw the episode like one time.
Well, now Harlock is in the show, so.
Actual Captain Harlock?
A character became Harlock.
Okay.
In a spaceship with the crew, dressed like Harlock, having Harlock space battles.
You haven't even watched Captain Harlock.
I've seen some of it, but I didn't know.
You watched the opener. You haven't watched the show.
I think I watched.
Do you even know what the
episode?
plot is of the show?
Captain Harlock is a humble space pirate.
Who's he fighting?
Who fights under his own flag.
Who's he fighting?
Fuck if I know.
So you don't know shit.
No.
What do you know?
He's a space pirate fighting under his own flag. For Nostra Libertad. So in some other news, this I guess it could be technology news, but it's just sort of like a PSA because I had to explain this to a lot of people professionally over the years. But fonts are just as copyrighted as anything else.
They're more so even.
And
the people who make, the people who make fonts.
A good font's not easy to make.
If it's a quality font, it takes a lot of effort to design and make. And the people who make them, since they put in so much effort, regardless of what you think about intellectual property law as a concept, which we've talked about a bajillion times, the law is, at least in countries where it's enforced, like this one, you can't just go using a font for whatever you want, right? It's like you can make a Word document and print it out at work, and it's not a big deal. But if you make a website and you're like a real commercial business with a website and you use some font on your website, you have to have the rights to do that. If you print out newspapers and sell them on the street, if you're using a font in that newspaper, you better have the rights to use that font. Otherwise,
and it gets complicated.
If someone sees, they're going to come after you.
Because even if you,
pay.
Buy a font, usually the licenses will have clauses that limit, can only be used for print runs of less than 10,000 per year, or can only be used in these circumstances, but not in video that's on broadcast TV.
It actually has a lot of consequences for the performance of websites. Because, for example, if you use something like Adobe Typekit, which gives you access to a zillion fonts legally. You got to pay for it. It comes with creative.
But they don't send you the file.
No, you have to basically, put this complicated to do it legally, right? You could obviously pirate the font, but to do it legally, the way they want you to is you include this code on your website that loads up the font and delivers it to the customer. Assuming they don't have it on their computer. And if it somehow doesn't work, it uses a font from the person's computer. But anyway, the point is, all of this rights checking stuff really slows down the website when you're just to load a font.
I changed the font because when I set up my company's new website.
We could have just had a world where people go font equals HTTP : blah 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 .ttf, and that just downloads fonts. But we can't have that world because people are so, people who make fonts are so.
There's also the thing recently where the use of a font in a document proved that said document was forged because that font didn't exist in the year the document purported to be from. There's a big thing with Ibrima, I think.
Should have just used a text file, bro.
Yeah.
Use a text file, you wouldn't have a font.
Yep. But but anyway, so this is a sort of article that talks about this and how there's some big money and big damages here. And all you really need to know is that just because a font is in an application that you have doesn't mean you actually have the legal right to use that font pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, you might use a font making a logo in Photoshop, and it's you have a zillion fonts in Photoshop, or you get one from Typekit into Photoshop, which you can do just by clicking, and you have it now. And then you make a logo with it, and then you use that logo, and now your logo's your famous trademark, and then the person who made the font sees that font in your logo, and now you're...
If you use a font in your trademark, Go lawyer up.
Now they're coming for your monies. If you didn't pay for it properly in the beginning, they're coming for you.
Yep. Fonts are complicated. And also, you might wonder, well, why don't people just use those free fonts? Because there's a lot of fonts that are basically public domain. Suck mostly. Like
the high quality, unique, or perfect fonts that don't have like these minor typographic issues.
And you don't even think about it.
The ones
it's so
that are
magical.
really, really polished are like made by Apple or.
Yep. But the best fonts are the ones that you literally like. They're so good that you look at a website or like you look at a thing and it just looks good and you can't really even articulate why.
And then you look at something else and the font is so similar, but it looks wrong, and you're like. You can't tell why, but the typographic people can tell why.
Yep.
They're experts.
I can't tell why, but I can tell what looks good or bad
and
because
that expertise is what helps them make good fonts.
Yep. Because I've scarily enough, I've been doing a lot of like legit graphic design lately, which is weird, but that's what I like. I know my way the hell around InDesign and Illustrator now, more so than I want to. So in some other news, a bunch of articles were running around about this lately, but it seems like this is legit.
Okay.
A lot of people younger than us literally don't know that broadcast TV exists.
Why would they know? They never watched it.
Yeah, they never. Most people seem to think when we switched from analog to digital, most young people who basically noticed television, who were like 10, 15 years younger than us, when they came of age, they just had cable probably and internet, and broadcast TV was gone. And very few people, except people who actually relied on broadcast television, mostly in rural areas, bothered upgrading to modern digital antennas.
Well, I think even people who do live in rural areas, right, in the years between 2000 and 2017, they all got satellite dishes. Satellite dish used to be a giant, enormous thing.
We had a satellite dish just for HBO. That's all we got was HBO.
Only thing affluent people could get, and only if they were willing to put some giant-ass dish out. But
you know what?
Once there was DirecTV and Dish Network with the small dishes, everyone around the world who wasn't in a very populous area that had cable all got dishes. And if you go to places that are even populous, highly dense, the populated areas, if they don't have the infrastructure to actually wire everyone up with cable, just everyone's got dishes. You go India, it's just dishes everywhere.
It's actually crazy. Like when I was young, even the reason satellite receivers, those big ones, appeared was that in the old days, television shows, even special stuff or premium stuff, was broadcast to the local networks unencrypted via satellite. So if you just got a dish and pointed it into the sky, you basically got the equivalent of free cable. So people were buying dishes and stealing TV. Also,
there weren't as many satellites up in the sky helping out with this.
Yep.
Right? It's been, since then, a lot of rockets put a lot more satellites up there to help. So but that's why we can have satellite TV.
They only started encrypting this stuff because nerds were basically watching TV for free or seeing shows before they were even released. All sorts of nonsense was going on. And cable, I remember when cable came to my neighborhood as a kid. Cable used to be a ridiculous luxury to get TV with no commercials.
The point is, people younger than us, right, so who are at least a few years younger than us, were not conscious at a time when broadcast television was used, right, pretty much at all by anyone. Everyone had a cable or a dish or was the kind of person who didn't have TV. And broadcast TV is still out there. It's still a thing. It's I think in Japan it's still a huge thing too.
Yeah.
Right? It's in other countries even.
But the U.S. had such a cable culture, and U.S. TV culture is pretty I've doing that anime openers panel. I learned a decent amount about how Italian TV works in some other countries. U.S. TV culture is really weird, and not many other places are like the way U.S. stuff worked out.
Nope.
For a lot of reasons. But another component of the story is that half the articles about this are clearly planted by marketing companies to push an agenda, because some of these quotes are just obviously so fake. It's kind of awesome. It doesn't log out.
Why are you helping them out by spreading their message?
Because some of the articles are legit and just talking about the technology, but basically what seems to be happening now is people are buying antennas who previously didn't know broadcast TV existed.
Is this really happening, or is someone just writing articles saying it's happening?
No, it's definitely happening. Antenna sales have actually risen for the first time, since ever.
It's interesting because you see things coming out I almost considered it the YouTube TV.
Yeah.
Where you pay a very small amount of money to YouTube every month, and then they will suddenly on YouTube is your local TV stations live. And you could even like, roll back and DVRs to some extent. I don't know exactly.
People are doing it seems, mostly to watch sports.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do with it.
Which doesn't help me because I want to watch Rangers, which would probably be blacked out anyway.
No, that wouldn't be on broadcast. That would be on, the MSG network and not. But you can watch football.
Yeah.
On the, Fox, CBS, whatever. But,
So, yeah, basically, if you didn't know, there is TV that's digital that's just in the air, and if you buy like a $10 antenna, it'll just be on your TV.
Assuming that you're close enough to a broadcast thing, no matter where you are, you're gonna get at least one station.
Yep.
Where I lived in Connecticut growing up, we had, because we were so close to New York, but also Connecticut, we had 2 CBS, 2 Fox, 2 NBC, 2 of all the major stations.
I had one better.
Plus local stations that were, syndicated and stuff like that.
Because I was in Michigan, in the Midwest, I got U.S. channels, Detroit. I also got the suburban channels, because the Detroit channels were like way powerful. And I got all the Canadian channels from Windsor.
Wouldn't Canadian channels be using like different technology though?
No.
Okay.
It was the same.
Because I'm pretty sure if you take your US...
I remember Channel 9
if I take my
particular.
US TV to like, somewhere else, it might not work. Not just NTSC PAL, but, other types of differences.
Well, let's not get into UHF and VHF and all that nonsense.
Right.
But, which I know...
Yeah, the UHF has been sold off.
It's all that stuff's gone.
We're now using it for other...
I actually know a lot about it because this is how old we are. We learned about this at RIT in one of my first IT classes. It was like, literally, like, we learned, like, how the electrical signals work in, like, Ethernet and, like, the details of, like, fiber encoding and broadcast encoding and radio encoding and all that nonsense. And literally everything I learned in that class, literally everything, is obsolete and basically not used anywhere anymore. So I can tell you all about differential Manchester, but that's not what modern Ethernet uses.
It's someone's job to like make sure this broadcasting still works, and it's like, would they even know if it stopped working? As if no one's watching it?
Yep.
How much energy are we using on broadcasting, TV and radio over the air?
Actually, way less
that
now
no
that
one
it's digital.
no one is listening to.
The old methods.
Radio towers is still really powerful.
Yep.
The multi-kilowatt radio towers, and they don't even know if anyone's listening. How do they know? Based on how many people call in when there's a contest?
But the other crazy thing was back then, because like the world was old and archaic, they would always, everything we saw, they'd be like, tonight at 7 o'clock, 6 Central, The Simpsons. They had to take into account the fact that they covered multiple time zones with a broadcast in a way that does not matter in the modern era. Stuff usually just comes on at midnight for the next day on Netflix or whatever.
Anyway.
All right. That killed enough time. Thing is the day and all that biz. But anyway, things of the day. So first I learned that, who Harlock fights? Wine. He is the destroyer of wine.
No.
He drinks a lot of wine.
Sure.
Yeah. But anyway, so I found this video kind of randomly, and it was really fascinating. You see how old medieval-looking buildings or like old Germanic buildings, like the second floor is actually like wider than the first floor? Like you see that a lot in old towns?
Sometimes. I know what you're talking about.
Like it overhangs?
I've seen it.
And if they go higher, like every higher floor is always bigger than the floor under it to the point that it gets kind of ridiculous.
I've never seen one. I'm sure that exists, but I can't. I mean, I've definitely know the thing where there's like little sort of like triangular like struts and the second floor sticks out, sort of like there's a balcony, but the balcony is on the inside. But I've never seen anything like continue going up like an upside down pyramid.
So why do you think that is? Like, why do they build buildings that way? What do you think?
They were bad at building buildings?
No, actually, if they were bad at building buildings, they wouldn't have done it that way. So try again, because I had an idea that I was super wrong about.
I don't know. What do I know about architecture? Nothing,
I always assumed it was because castles looked that way, and it was a defensive thing. And this video is basically like, no, none of you know shit about architecture.
You're defending your little wooden house? Someone will just set it on fire. There, it's done.
I always assumed
great defense
that castles did it for a defensive reason, and other buildings did it to look like castles. But
I never thought about it to even come up with a reason.
I thought about it a little. So this video goes into extreme detail on why medieval buildings are built that way. And it's not for the reason I thought, and it actually makes a lot of sense, and it's really interesting.
It makes a nice little tiny place to hide if the rain is falling.
Yeah, actually.
And you haven't invented the awning yet.
It also means people in upper floors emptying the chamber pots will get them further away from the base of your house.
Is that the reason?
No. There's two reasons. One reason is structural. The structure is actually better that way, which seems crazy, but then there's a bunch of diagrams explaining why. Like, It's actually better to build a wooden house that way.
Why don't we build houses that way anymore?
Because we use very different building techniques. Like the kinds of houses we build are not the kinds of houses they used to build.
Anyway.
This was like, I was surprised at how interesting a video about this very specific and minor detail of medieval architecture was, but it ended up being really interesting. It's like 20 minutes long. There's a lot to say, which is terrifying.
All right, so we're going to talk about this in a minute, but we spent the weekend in like upstate New York biking or whatever. So I was thinking about the upstate New York boonies areas. And in high school, we would go with the youth group. We would go to these conventions, and our conventions were held in the Paramount Hotel in Parksville, New York. So I was like, all right.
You pointed that out. Like anytime we've been even within like 50 miles of it, you'll be like, hey.
Right. Well, by the time I was in college, I think shortly after the last time I was there in the late 90s, it burned down. And that was the end of it. But we drove past it a few times in the RIT days because it was on the way to wherever we were going.
And every time you'd be like, hey, Rim, you know what that is?
We took the other road instead of 90. And
hey, Rim, you know what that is?
That's right. It's basically a lot like the hotel from The Shining.
Yeah.
And it's, back in the day, you got to remember, way back, like, my parents' age, right? The Jews from New York City, in the summer, would go up to the Catskills and spend their time, basically their whole summer almost, in these either bungalow colonies or big giant luxury hotel places. And this is where you had like all the great comedians. And
you ever hear of the Borscht Belt?
Right,
like
all the
Borscht Belt comedy?
Right, all that stuff was in these kind of places, right? Dirty Dancing, the movie, was in one of the hotels up there, one of the fancier ones that had ice skating and shit, right? But, the Paramount was one that still existed in the late 90s before it burnt down. And I was thinking about it again because we were upstate New York, even though we were way east of where this is.
Yep.
So I Googled it, and I'm like, I wonder if there's any new info. So I went to Google Maps, and I saw, oh, nope, it's still the same satellite image, and the street view car still hasn't been on that road, so I still can't see anything better. But I can still see what's there, which basically looks like a crazy, mashed-up nonsense building with a rundown pool outside of it. But I found this interview with, I guess, the guy who owned it from maybe a few years ago, like the 2010s. And this interview was really fascinating from somebody who spent time in that hotel. I went to it like 4 or 5 times. It was very interesting to read what this guy had to say about it. And it makes me think, maybe that fire was not no accident. This guy might have insurance frauded his way out of that hotel.
Well, the hotel was like 100 years old at that point, right? Like it was old.
It was like the most crazy. Like we got lost every time we were in that hotel, and we would we tried to figure out our way around it. It was like a Resident Evil situation, only we couldn't remember. And we would end up in places that were like under construction, just like open to the air and really weird. And then we entered you'd go down a hallway and you'd be like in a different building. Like there was so many additions added to it, and they're all different. And it's like all the doors were red and the carpet was different in this area.
And there's these ghost girls who were trying to murder you.
Like the banquet halls we ate lunch in were just like enormous, like the biggest friggin' like hall you've ever seen. Like so like tables and chairs, like it's super far. You could have a wedding for like 1,000 people in there probably. Yeah. It was insane how big this place was. And then we would go and hang. We did most of our stuff in this like downstairs like kind of area that had like a stage and a huge dance floor and a bar and an empty cigarette vending machine because that's how old the place was. They still had those. But most of the people staying there when we were there that weren't for an event like ours were like hunters, whereas back in the day that was a happening place. People were going there just to go there.
Which is crazy to me. Like, think about how different the world is. Like, would you go to a hotel just like somewhere not that far from your house and just stay there?
Well, people do it today, but they do it either on hotels that float or hotels in tropical places. They don't do it in hotels that are like nearby. Usually,
or they do it like the Gaylord is kind of like a modern.
Well, people will go to if people are going to do this kind of thing, they'll go to a hotel, but they're not going to the hotel to go to the hotel. There's attractions in the area. Right? And the hotel is just a place they sleep. Whereas back in the day, there weren't attractions, right? It was the hotel built attractions so that you would come to it. And that it would provide you everything in the one place. It would be like, people do have resorts in the tropics that are a hotel that with also attractions in the same place. Casino, food, pool, beach, whatever. It's just the same idea, only in the woods. Only the idea of it not being tropical has sort of become not popular.
Yeah. So, in the meta moment, the book club book was Frank Herbert's Dune, and we read it a while ago, and we're done, and the episode's up, and you can just listen to it. So, yeah, we're done. We read Dune. It was what it was, and if you want to know our thoughts on it, you can listen to this episode.
So the new book club book is the 5th season, not winter, spring, summer, or fall.
But
another kind of season by N.K. Jemisin. This is like the hottest, fantasy sci-fi author right now. So, and this is like, I guess, the first book you're supposed to read from this author. So that's what we're going to do.
Yep.
Other meta moment stuff. I've actually gotten a lot of people applying to the forums recently.
Oh, welcome to the...
No, I accepted none of them because when you fill out the form to join the forum, there's like a field that's like reason for joining. And a lot of people write something like discussion, or one person wrote, I want to make friends who play CSGO. And someone else wrote something else, right? And it's like... Some of these things are clearly not something a human would write, or something a human ignored the field and just typed in whatever.
Or a human who would write that is not someone I want to talk to necessarily.
Right, all right. If you want to have your application to join the forum approved, you must write something in there that proves to me, reading it with my eyeballs, that you actually are like someone who knows what GeekNights is. You could write something like, for example, some people have written, I was in the old forum, making an account on the new one. And it's like, that's clear, right? Or some people have written, been a listener for a long time. It's like, oh, clearly you know what GeekNights is.
Yep.
But if you have an email address from Ukraine and it says, want to talk to like-minded people, that's not enough. I'm going to decline your registration. Please try again.
But you should join our forum, because if you're listening to this podcast, I guess... there's something that you like here, so you might as well meet other people who like the same thing. And our forum's actually pretty great.
And it has activity every day. It has the right amount of activity every day.
Yeah.
And there's a discussion thread for every episode, so it's a good place to go to hang out with, us and other people who are dumb enough to listen to us.
So the other thing is that you might know the Prince of Nothing series, R. Scott Bakker, just been a thing with us for a long time.
Since as long as GeekNights has existed, this has been our fantasy series.
Yep.
That is not the greatest fantasy series, but we are super obsessed with it because it is the most GeekNights.
Yep. It fits us real well, a lot of its aspects, and there's reasons.
Not all
like
of its aspects, but enough of its aspects.
But we just finished the last book, or the latest book. So
did you read the appendices?
I'm reading the appendices like all night tonight.
I got to work on the.
I'm reading the whole thing because the appendices. The one thing I love about these books is that
one appendix is glossary, one is maps, but the other two have actual stuff.
But the fact that every book has like a glossary at the end, and the same thing will have a definition in every book, but in every book that definition is expanded more and more based on things you've learned along the way.
What's great is if you go online and look at other fans of these books, they notice particular things. They notice that an unusual number of moderately important figures in the world all died in this same year, according to the glossary.
I noticed that in particular.
That can't be a coincidence. What happened? And it happened that year happens to fall between. It's the year of the Tusk, in between two of the books. When, an area of time that we don't get a lot of information about.
Yup.
So what's up with that?
I noticed, too, that there's a lot of people who died in the year that the book we just read takes place.
There's also quite a few, errors that have been pointed out by people online. Like, someone's eye color changes from book to book and stuff like that. So...
Scratchy Itchy struck the same rib twice, and yet two distinct notes were sounded. That kind of complaint. There's an R. Scott Bakker AMA where he was answering a lot of questions too, and for a couple of them he was like,
all my questions he was like, he wrote RAFO, which means read and find out.
Yep.
I'm just like, where'd a heron spear? I thought I was gonna get my heron spear in this book, and I didn't get it. And he's like, read and find out.
Yep.
And I'm.
But that's good. The three answers he gives are basically, no, you didn't read the book closely enough, or no, that's a really clever thing you noticed, but that's not intentional, or read your book, dude. There's more book coming. There's more book.
Don't die before you write this book. How old are you?
Yeah. I feel like he's doing okay.
We'll make it.
So, we did this bike ride, and it was pretty great. And I feel like we'll get all our bike talk out in this show.
Yeah,
but
we'll do a whole show on this.
So Scott convinced me to do this.
Right. So what happened was my biking friend told me last year, hey, I went on this bike ride where you take the train upstate to somewhere in the boonies, and then you camp on a field, and then you wake up and bike all day, and you come back, and there's awesome food, and they support the ride, and there's awesome rest stops and awesome scenery, and then you come home on the train. And I'm like, that sounds crazy fun. I would like to do this.
Yep.
So this year, I was like, oh, it's spring again. That thing sounded so fun that I didn't forget about it. I will ask, hey, Katie, what was that ride? Oh, it's the Harlem Valley Rail Ride. Okay, so I go in and register for it once we decide I'm going to do it, right? I'm not going to do it alone, but once I figured people seem like it's going to happen, I just registered.
Yep.
And then I got a phone call that was like, hey, you're the first person to register. And I'm like, really?
I registered the Thursday before.
Yeah, apparently I'm real dumb for registering early, even though it turned out great. But most people register for these bike ride things at like close to the last second as possible because they want to check the weather, right?
Which makes sense.
So
I mean, I like biking in the rain, like short distances.
I don't mind if it's regular rain.
I don't want to bike 70 miles in driving rain.
And I don't have to be anywhere, and it's not so slippery I'm going to fall over and die or something, right? But, obviously I prefer it not to be raining.
Yeah.
But apparently she was showing me this other bike ride that was like nickel and diming everyone, charging like extra money for rain insurance and extra money for like extra stuff, and it's like, really? Whoa.
Well, there's a thing that kind of
this ride was very reasonable. I paid what, like $75?
Yeah, something like that.
And that just covered everything.
Yep.
And I could ride any distance I wanted.
So like I bike a lot. Like as a kid, like I was a mountain biker, and I'm kind of getting into mountain biking again. Like biking is a big hobby of mine, but it is far from my primary hobby.
It's not my primary hobby, but it is. If it is warm and I'm not doing anything, and it's not raining or something, I do that because all my other hobbies I could like play video games or I could do that anytime, right?
But you can only bike when it's nice out.
And biking is, it's not my number one, but it's close to the top, and it's definitely my number one thing I do outside. So if there's an opportunity to be outside, it becomes the number one priority to do, because when it comes winter, I do it zero at all.
But it's interesting because I've never done like a big bike ride with people whose primary hobby is biking before.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not going to ever care about bike racing. This is just a, bike around and enjoy the scenery. And some people are doing it for fitness or training reasons, but there's no reward for coming in first. They don't give
out. My reward was?
It's not
I got dinner like 40 minutes before you.
Right.
I was real hungry.
But it's not like one of those things where they hand out medals to everyone, no matter where you finish, right? It's absolutely not a competition anyway. It's literally just come out and you can go on a bike ride that is much longer and interesting that you could normally go on by yourself with added safety and comfort.
So
with company.
Yep.
That's the big thing. It's like I could just take the train up there and go on this bike ride whenever I wanted to.
Yeah, I have the route now.
Nothing's gonna stop me, but I would not have people waiting at farms to hand me food or porta potties to pee.
Do you know how many people I met? Just like
and
I was
wouldn't
riding,
the people to meet.
I'd pull up next to someone and we're kind of going the same pace, and we'd talk for like 5 minutes, and then one of us would just pull ahead, and that was that. I met like 20 or 30 cool people just like biking next to them, and almost every one of them started the conversation the same way.
You all have biking in common.
Yep, but pretty much all of them were like...
And someone who bikes and cares about biking that much is a good person.
Pretty much every one of them was like, so... What happened to your bike? Because I wasn't using. I think I might have been the only person on the long ride who didn't have a road bike.
Well, we weren't on the long ride. We were on the 72 miles.
Yeah, so it has a whole bunch of. There's two centuries.
Right. So there's a super short ride that's pretty much just on the rail trail.
And I looked at the people who were on the three shortest rides.
It was like children and.
But they pretty much all had like mountain bikes and hybrids and like.
Yeah, it's like the fun ride for kids and family type ride, right? Then there's like I don't know what goes in between, but then you start to get to like medium ride, like 50 miles, which is like, okay, you're gonna bike, but you're not super serious about biking, but you can do it, right? You'll enjoy your whole day biking 50 miles.
But there were 4 at the top that are like the big ones.
Right. So we did 72, which I did 72 because that's what everyone else is doing.
Yep, I did 72 because
I was like, hey, which one are we doing? We're doing 72. well, that sounds good.
And
I could do
did
that
it because you were doing it. I thought about doing the century because I've never biked 100 miles before.
I felt like I could do the 100. Like I would finish it. Obviously, it would take me a couple hours more than the 72.
Yep.
But it had Daddy 2 giant hills.
Yep. Now they had 2 versions of the century. They had a normal one
and then a leg saver.
And they had one with 5 fucking giant hills.
That's the 100 challenge.
You climb over a mile, and the people who were doing that one, when they started rolling into the camp at the end, they looked like grim death.
Yeah, these are people. So there was one person who did the challenge who was, a friend of the friends we went with, so I didn't really know them.
Yep.
And they finished that challenge when we were on the train home, but they only started 1 hour late. They're supposed to start it at 7. They started at 8. And these were people who are super serious.
I met a lot of people.
Way more serious and fit than we are.
There's a point where people who failed on the century could cut off and join the end of the 72.
If you don't finish, if you're not far enough along, they force you to turn at a certain point. Like, nope.
Yep.
And also, I think one of the monster hills was closed for some mysterious reason. I heard rumors about like a lost hiker.
Yeah, I Googled I could not find even the slightest mention of anything like that.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal was, but I mean, small town news, right? But one of the hills was closed for some reason that was out of the control of the people organizing the ride.
Yep. Now, so on one hand, I thought, I should do the century because, no lie, I bike a lot and I run a lot and I'm pretty fit.
I mean, I can just bike 40 miles after work on Friday with not even a problem. So I'm like, if I'm biking all day with nothing else to do but bike, and I don't have to stop, and I have rest stops and all the support, I could definitely do 100.
Yeah, because normally I do self-supported rides, meaning I have a backpack with everything I would need if I. So
this
problems.
is I don't have to carry anything, but I get all the luxury of if I was carrying stuff.
Yeah, you know what I had? I had an emergency pump, 1 tube, a patch kit, and 1 water bottle, and that's it.
I had 2 water bottles and a tube and a CO2 cartridge and some Allen wrenches.
Yep. I had tire levers.
And tire levers. And that's all I had.
Yep. But on the
and my human body.
So the 72 was the cut. It seems like everyone above that in the entire ride, I saw 1 person other than me who was not on a road bike. 1, and I was looking for him. And everyone I talked to was like, "Oh man, did something happen to your bike?" Everyone assumed that I broke my bike and was using my backup bike, and they were shocked that I'd ride that far on a hybrid.
You can do it.
Yeah, it was. I mean,
it's just maybe less comfortable and less efficient, possibly.
It's definitely less efficient because gearing's different and all that stuff. But at the same time, I'm actually more a mountain biker than a road biker to this day because I spent most of my life doing mountain biking.
I'm sure. What the thing is, I only had to. My goal was to just. It's not a race. I didn't care how fast I went. And I pretty much assumed that I would go slower than everyone else because I don't bike for fitness or try. And it seemed like other people were actually trying to go fast to at least some extent.
Yep.
Whereas when I ride my bike, I basically, if I feel this is hurting or I'm going to be out of breath, I slow down. And I make sure that I'm always I'm perfectly relaxed at all times. Right? So I'll go super ridiculous slow as long if it's up a hill. I'll just be this feels great. So even if I'm climbing the steepest hill, I'm just
So it was interesting.
So I was way slow compared to other people, but I mean, I finished compared to Rim, who runs and climbs daily.
You were 30 minutes after me.
I was 30 minutes after you, and that doesn't include the fact that I stayed at rest stops longer than you did because I was going
Well, for
and hanging out and talking to people.
Supported rides are the best because every 10 or so miles there was a rest stop with water and Gatorade and gels and food, and you could just relax. So I waited. We had a group of people. We met all these cool people and we're hanging out, friends of friends or whatever, and I would wait for some of them at each stop before I went away, and I think it was the 3rd to last rest stop where I just stopped waiting for people and just tried to power through to the end as fast as I possibly could.
Yeah, I had no interest in going as fast as I possibly could.
But I like that feeling. So on that first big climb, I pushed myself up that hill.
Yeah. So my goal was to basically
a whole bunch of people. I was really because I'm not super in biking. I was actually kind of weirdly
Well, first
happy.
of all, your bike had way lower gears. I probably could have gotten up the hill on your bike.
Oh, yeah, but
even though it's heavier than mine.
But I was not in that lowest gear for a lot of those climbs because I was going as fast as I could.
I used my lowest gear often and didn't give a shit. Because my goal is basically, because the thing is, I never stand up. I saw a lot of people, they stand up.
Oh, on a steep climb? Standing's great.
I never stand.
Why?
My goal is not stand.
Why?
I just don't.
Standing's a perfectly valid technique.
I just don't stand, right? And then
that's weird. I mean, I don't walk. That's my thing. I will never walk.
Oh, see, usually I would never walk, but that hill was just at such a steepness that in my lowest gear, while I was sitting, I could not turn the pedal.
I could if I stood, you can do the push pull, and just freely get up.
If I stood, I could have gotten up easily. If I had, known that the hill was going to be that steep, I probably could have maybe done a zigzag or something. Because it basically comes, you turn a corner and there it is. And I saw someone else walking and I'm just like, oh well. But I only walked up the one hill.
I did not walk at any point. And I also did not run into trouble at any point because there's one section way near the end where the road, like the trail was real shitty and covered in gravel.
That was the shitty part, yeah.
But the funny thing is because I was on a hybrid, I was just like, whoosh, didn't even think about it.
And I didn't have too much problem with the gravel, but I had to really look at the ground to avoid.
I saw 4 different people get flat tires, like, on that one spot.
I didn't get a flat tire, but I was basically at that part, I was chilling with some people who were on a tandem bike.
No.
And I was like, whoa, awesome tandem bike, woo. And then suddenly they stop, and they're, like, just behind me. So then I stop, and I'm like, whoa, you guys all right? And then I realize everyone else was turning off the gravel onto the rail trail again, and I'm like, oh, they know. If I hadn't noticed them stopping, I would have totally missed that turn off right there.
Yep, I almost followed it way toward the end
because all the directions are painted on the ground, but they don't paint on the gravel.
Yeah,
the paint was on the pavement off to the side.
After the rail trail, I was following this guy for a while. Like I was just I wasn't like drafting him, but I was just like following him because you can think less and focus more on the scenery if you keep like someone else who's going at a good pace for you just like in your peripheral vision.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to follow someone because if I'm by myself, every now and then I'm like, am I still on the right trail? Like waiting for the next.
There were a lot of times where I was alone and there wasn't a direction on the street for a long time, and
then one would come.
You have the cue sheet. Right?
I didn't. I lost mine like right away. So.
I have mine, but I never had to check it because every time I thought I might have been lost, someone appeared or some direction appeared on the ground or direction from a previous year that was faded was on the ground.
Yep.
And then when I got to the end on Strava, the map exactly matched 100% super accurately the map on the website. It even said exactly 72 miles, like 72.0. I was like, damn, that's some accurate map right there.
Yep, my Strava says 72.4 in the end, and I looked. There's a spot toward the end. The only time I stopped outside of rest stop the entire time, I pulled my bike like
to pee in the woods,
20 or 30 feet down this like driveway, and then walked into the woods. Peed forever.
I just peed on the side of the road.
I went off the road.
Even though the thing is, like I peed at every rest stop, but at that I had to pee again because I drank too much water.
Yeah, well, at the end, like I was getting pretty tired, so I drank a lot of water, and that was kind of a mistake.
I wasn't tired. I was like, when I got to the end, I was like, I made it to the end.
I was tired, but in that long flat section near the end, I tried to go fast.
Well, I didn't. Actually, was surprising is that even obviously I was more fatigued. I didn't feel like tired and like I need to go to sleep, but my body was clearly more fatigued closer to the end because I had biked already 70 miles.
Yep.
But when I got on the rail trail itself, it was covered in shade and the pavement on it was different for some reason.
I just started going faster there
on the
good.
Parts that were technically rail trail. I was just going faster while still being comfortable because I think of the shade and the pavement. Something about it was just like, you can go faster here because the pavement on the street was, I guess, not as good. I don't know.
So the cool thing is, like, all the other people we were with are like way more like biking is their main hobby.
Well, yeah, I mean, Katie was like, I biked every weekend this summer.
Yeah,
I didn't hang out with my non-biking
I don't
friends.
think I'd ever biked more than 60 or so miles in one go ever.
The thing is, I think they did this program in New York that the New York Cycle Club does called the SIG, which has like different groups A, B, and C. And it's a free program, but like they teach you how to group ride for serious. The A group is like, we teach you how to like form pace lines and we'll kick you out if you're too slow and stuff, right? But they did the B one, I think, which is why they knew to like have these clips to hold their cue sheet on their handlebars.
Yep.
And, like they learned all this stuff there that we didn't learn. But I went to the website because like they kept trying to push me to do it. Like, oh, Scott, you should really do the SIG. Oh, you should do it. And I went to the website to check it out. Last year, the first of all, it's a 10-week thing or 12, and you have to do every week. You can't really miss it or else you get kicked out. The very first week of it last year was the PAX East weekend.
Well,
and it's just like, and it's also like it starts in March, at the beginning of March when it's cold. So you got to buy some, like equipment to go bike in the cold. Otherwise, you're going to quit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why, I think that's where a lot of them met or whatever.
Yep. But in terms, like, I realized pretty well on that a lot of the people on this trail, like, not just the people we were hanging out with, but, like, everyone I talked to along the way, biking is definitely, like, their primary or sole hobby. But specifically this kind of biking, no one I talked to had ever mountain biked, no one, like, all the jargon about, like, trail riding or single track, like, no one had any idea what I was talking about. They only do this. I remember two different people, I ended up sort of like they were curious. I was just explaining in detail like how mountain biking works. And like, yeah, you don't clip in, you just put your feet on. And they're like terrified of that. And it was just, it's interesting to see people have a very narrow and deep hobby because I pretty much just like, I'm not super deep on anything and I'm just all over the place on everything.
I'm sure those people have other hobbies besides biking.
Oh yeah.
Right? But they're just way more into biking than like.
But only this kind of biking. Like I do all kinds of biking.
Right. It's the thing is they care about, a lot of those people care about.
Like as a kid, I used to do like BMX biking and I don't do that anymore.
They care about biking itself, whereas for me, it's like, yeah, I do enjoy biking, but I was looking at the scenery more than I was trying to, check the time or worry about my body's health or any of that nonsense, right? I'm just like, whoa. Because, like, you go out to this place, it was Millerton, New York, and the surrounding towns, and it's like farms. There were a few places.
It is the very definition of bucolic and pastoral.
There were a few places where there were houses next to each other, but there was a lot of trees.
There's one spot where like you get to the top of this mountain and it's like it was a slog to get up there, and we finally get to the top, and then you kind of come over the crest, and then there's a spray paint that says 2 miles straight down, fly. But along, like right around there was another spray paint that said, look, and an arrow to your left. In case like you're so focused on the ride, you look to your left, and it's like the most gorgeous farmland. Like there's a pond in the distance.
There were horses and cows, mostly horses up there. But there were some cows indoors.
More cows and more cows. All the goats and then some pigs.
All the rest stops seem to be in cooperation with certain farms. So like you go and you stop at like the horse farm, and the people who run the horse farm were out there running the rest stop. One of the rest stops was way better than the others. It had a misting tent. And
that's the one with ice, right?
And it had ice. The other ones didn't have ice. This one had ice.
Yep.
And one of the rest stops was sadder than the others. It had like the bare minimum amount of stuff. I should have skipped that one. But yeah, the actual camp place where you like start is like the baseball field of Millerton. It's like the town park, I guess. That's where we camped. You don't have to camp. A lot of people stayed in hotels.
It seems like the vast majority of people live in the area and drive in.
Yeah, the vast majority of people just drove there Sunday morning, got out and biked, whereas we went there Saturday, woke up and biked.
Going there and camping is definitely the superior method because there aren't that many people camping, and it's like this really chill vibe.
And when we woke up in the morning, and it's like there was awesome breakfast there.
Yep.
It wasn't like the greatest breakfast ever, but
it was like band camp breakfast.
The bagel was way better than street cart bagel, although it wasn't greatest bagel ever. It was free, of course, right? Everything and like they were actually making like French toast there, which is way good. The bacon was really sad.
The sausage was good though. I should eat more of that sausage.
I didn't eat the sausage, and then when we got back afterwards,
just BBQ.
Yeah, it wasn't
grilling.
It wasn't the kind of barbecue I had for lunch today, right? But it was like it was pretty good. It's like all right.
I got a brat. I got a sausage and onions.
And the thing is like they do all this stuff to like help you out. It's like when we arrived on the train to get there, they were there with a van, because we called them, to take all of our stuff except our bikes so that we could bike on the rail trail to get from the train in Wassaic to Millerton. And then when we had to go back home to New York, they put our bikes in a pickup truck, put us in a van, and drove all of us to the train station, like, for nothing. Just like, that's just what they do. And it was super organized, and they actually took care of shit.
At the end, like, getting the bikes
like
on the trucks.
Everything happened on time perfectly.
They exhibited the PAX Tabletop Enforcer mantra, make it fit.
Yeah, and
they made it fit.
Apparently, this operation is, like, actually only run by 2 people, and I guess everyone else was just, like, volunteers or staff of some kind helping out. But like there were so many people helping out. This van's driving around checking, like if you would like biking and you'd see nothing for like miles. But if you stopped and waited, a van would eventually just drive by like, hey,
and like, hey, thumbs up, you good?
Yeah, like you need something from us? It's like a whole van full of help. They were just driving everywhere.
I'm glad I didn't have trouble because actually my front tire is still the original tire from when I bought this bike. And it's pretty pitted, actually, and like on the end of its life.
Yeah, I have no troubles.
Original tire, original tube. I bought that bike some time ago.
But yeah, regardless of your biking athletic skill, right? If you live in New York, you can go to this specific ride. It's worth it.
Unless it's going to rain that weekend, I'm definitely doing it again.
Right,
it was
but
a lot of fun.
you know, based on where you live, I'm sure you can find rides similar to this. Just don't do one in like, I don't know, Colorado or Vermont or someplace that's made of mountains, Switzerland.
So
right? Do it someplace that's at least mostly flat-ish.
An interesting sort of side point is that the website's like good in some ways. Like it has a lot of info. Like there's a lot of stuff here, but it also lacks all the like really pertinent details that only me and Scott seem to care about. Like everyone else, like bike community, just trusted. Like, oh yeah, it'll work. It'll just work out.
Well, I think that a lot of people have done this before.
True.
But
it's partly that
there are hundreds of people doing it.
You know how my hobby is failed conventions.
Yeah.
Like
This is the opposite. This is run so professionally.
Like even the first PAX we went to, I was like reading every detail on that website. Like, okay, it's in this building. It starts at this time. Get my badge will be here because of this. Like I'm so like, and this, it was just like, yeah, just show up and camp. And I'm like, well, when can I show up? And it turns out it doesn't matter. Just show up.
Apparently some people show up early on Saturday, bike on Saturday, and then bike on Sunday.
Yeah. I think next year I'd show up like several hours earlier on Saturday, but not like crack of dawn. Get there like late afternoon.
Yeah, you could do like some, you know, like a nice 20, 30-mile pre-ride.
Yeah, maybe play some bocce or something.
Yeah, someone was playing. Some people, I think this family had brought a game that I hadn't heard of that I looked up, and it's called something ladder.
Oh, with the bolos?
You basically have a bola. It's like 3 sticks vertically, and you have a bola, which is 2 balls with a rope attached to each other, and you're trying to throw it and get it to catch on the thing. So that looked really fun. But
also,
we should have brought some cub.
Because I planned, like I didn't actually like commit until like right before. So I bought I registered on Thursday, which I think was the last day to register before the price increase. Like if you did it the day of.
Yeah, if you do day of, it's $100.
And then
I paid $75.
I thought, oh, maybe I'll stay at a motel. And then I was like, no, that's stupid. So I had to go like buy a tent.
You didn't have to buy a tent. You could have just borrowed. You know, the tent I was in was a 2-people tent. You could have stayed in that.
Yeah, well, I asked you like how big a tent.
I didn't know it was.
And you were like, I don't know, and I can't trust that. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna risk it.
You don't got. You know, you just like buying stuff.
No, well, actually, I did need a tent because I do plan to do some camping.
I just borrowed my friend's tent
and I do
because
have.
I don't
my
need
mom has all my old like camping and tent stuff, and I thought maybe I want to mail it to me. And like Emily's parents have like all her old stuff, but I went and bought, because they're not that expensive, like a modern backpacking tent. Holy shit, has that technology gotten better in the last 20 years?
Yeah, despite not, I haven't put together a tent in so long, and any tent I've put together has not been complicated or was old style. I put together and I was worried about breaking it because it wasn't my tent and it was expensive. And it's like with no instructions whatsoever, this expensive tent belonging to my friend that I was afraid to break. I put it together perfectly from the first try, just like boop.
Yep.
With no instructions.
My tent was up in like 30 seconds, and the rest of the time was me fucking with it and like making sure because I wasn't convinced.
Yeah, it was like, whoa, that was really easy and not a problem at all.
And we could see stars, but like basically I didn't own any modern equipment because I haven't done like serious camping since I was a kid, and all the stuff that I own through my family is old enough to where the technology is vastly superior today. Like my hiking backpack is an external frame, which is like a monster by modern standards.
I think I have a sleeping bag that I used in the desert from the year 2000.
Yeah.
That sleeping bag is probably garbage.
I went and looked at
now.
modern sleeping bags, like the world changed.
Yeah.
But I didn't buy a sleeping bag because I don't need, like, I'm not going to do winter camping ever again.
No, screw that.
So I enjoyed when I did it.
It was a little bit colder than I thought, but it was still warm enough that I made it.
But I bought
suffering.
a sleep sack, which is basically like a tiny sleeping bag that you can stuff in like a really tiny space, but it only works if it's like 50 degrees or more. Like below that, it won't help you. And it was actually really cheap. Like I got it on sale at REI, but basically I went and like bought this stuff. And now actually I might do a camping trip like right after PAX, so it's kind of good that I got this. The only problem was that I have the sleeping pads. Like you don't want to sleep on grass directly, usually. Even in a tent, like that's not comfortable. So I needed like a sleeping mat. And I had to, so I lent Scott one. But the ones I got are pretty big because they're like the luxury comfortable
Yeah, I'm going to get this
ones.
one on Amazon that's green that goes way smaller. I'm going to get that one.
Because this is the one I'll bring to like Pete and Nuri's house if I'm going to sleep on their floor.
Yeah.
But I'm not necessarily, or like winter camping because it's crazy insulated, but not carrying that like on my backpack.
Yeah. Other funny things, the people we were with, they spent like the whole time having the same conversation about this creepy dude.
Oh my God, that guy!
And it's like all they could talk about was this creepy dude.
Well, partly because Scott has the gnosis of like creepy dude lore.
Well, they were in, they did some biking event with this dude, right? And afterwards, the dude, I guess, messaged them all like in succession, like trying to ask them out.
Yup.
And then, of course, now here at the biking event, all of them are together, and they're like, oh, we all got messages from the same creepy dude. Really?
Well, apparently one of them was reading an email out loud, and Scott's like, "There's warning signs there."
I'm like, that's creepy dude. So that was a funny story. Another funny story was I don't know. Were there any other funny stories? I was like trying to think, like, you think you do something like this, like weird stuff would. There was this really awesome dog that I passed.
Oh yeah, that austere.
There was
and noble dog.
It was like an enormous dog sitting at the end of a driveway that I biked past.
Leonine, I described.
And I was like, it was like he was like guarding the driveway, but he like wasn't misbehaving. It was like, whoa, that is like the awesomest dog right there. There were horses, but they didn't bother anybody.
Well, they came over like bothering people for treats, and when no one gave them a treat, they were like, and they just left. They were like, no one's giving me an apple.
What else happened there?
I mean, it was a fun time hanging out with a bunch of strangers, swapping stories.
There was a music guy at the end who was actually really like quite a good musician, but was too loud, so it was hard to talk when we were hanging out.
But not as loud as like other kinds of events like this.
It wasn't metal concert loud. It was just slightly difficult to talk to each other, hanging out at the end loud.
Yep. It was partly, it's rare. Usually the circles I hang out with strangers are more on the gamer or technology side. Very rarely on the sports side, because most of the sports I do either do solo or I do with friends. Like, most of my biking is alone, self-supported, or me and Emily self-supported. And, like, skiing I mostly do by myself. Like, I only go on ski trips with other people other than Emily, like, twice a year, tops. And this, like, I imagine doing all the other sports that I mostly do solo with all the people who do those sports. And I think that would actually be fun. I just don't have time because I do other stuff.
Oh, that's right. The other thing. So we all had to take our bikes on the train, the Metro North train. So
Metro North was not ready for us.
On the way up, it wasn't really a big deal because there weren't that many other bikers on our train. But on the way back, because like everyone arrived at different times taking different trains. But on the way back, it was pretty much like there are two trains going back basically, and most of us are on this 6 o'clock train.
There must have
back.
been like 50 bikes.
We like filled and the MTA technically has rules about like 8 bikes per train or
2 per car
or something like that.
It's not a high number.
But like it was crazy. We filled the back of this Metro North train with bikes in all the seats.
The conductors were pretty not cool. Like they weren't.
I don't know. They allowed it.
They were definitely annoyed by it.
It was a hassle for them.
And then a lot of the people who got on the train later, because the train basically completely filled, because this is like all the people who did upstate crap on Sunday coming back into the city, and the train shows up basically full of bikes. And so the funniest thing, actually, on the way there, we were on the train, right? And like we do our transfer and everything. And this old man, like I'm away from everyone else by myself because I talked to the conductor and I just like put my bike like in the empty car that was roped off, and that was way pleasant. But as I'm leaving, this old man who was sitting there where Scott and them were with the other bikes, he goes to the conductor and he's like, "How can you let this happen?" The conductor's like, "What?" And he's like, "Why are there bikes on this train? They're in the way. It's rude. They're getting the seats." And he's like, this guy was so pissed that there were bikes on the train.
People just get pissed by things that are out of the ordinary and make them angry.
And then when we were in the subway,
talk about this literally all the time. This is the thing that is talked about the most. Why do we need to keep talking about it?
It was like I'm standing
there
looking at him.
are people in this world who are dumb, angry, averse to change, averse to newness,
but the
get
fact
upset
that he
by
said
anything that is unroutine.
In the terms, the exact words he said were to the conductor, "How could you let this happen?" That's the kind of thing you say when like someone gets hit by the train or like a gunfight breaks out. Or, that's not something you say because you saw a bike.
People are fragile.
Yeah.
Something's out of the ordinary. Oh my God.
But no, this was super, super fun. And I really like biking. And I think I had to replace my clip shoes because the toes, like the clips are fine, like everything's fine, but my toes have almost broken through the front of the shoes. I think I've just worn them out from using them for so many years.
Mine are like, the problem with mine, there's nothing wrong with them, but it's like they're the right length, but They are way too wide. I have to basically pull the things like super tight. The problem
I got
is,
narrow ones on purpose. I ordered like 5 from Zappos.
Well, that's
and
what
sent
I
back.
did. I did the same thing, and the ones that were one size smaller, my toe was like bumping up against the front.
Nah, you
so
don't want that.
that's why I kept the ones that I have. But I think I might have to just buy like a different brand next time if I can't get narrow ones or something.
Yeah.
Maybe next year.
I mean, my one pair is sort of like, I might get a pair that's less walkable, but just more like bikery. I don't know.
My helmet, which is only a few years old and is still perfectly great. Like the fuzzy stuff on the inside is all like destroyed. So I'm like, I don't want to buy a new helmet. They're not cheap, and there's nothing wrong with this one. So I wonder if I can just get replacement cushion parts for the inside.
I was about to type in to find out how often bike helmets should be replaced, because there's probably some like specific guidance on there.
Yeah.
The recommendation searches for how often should you change your oil. That makes sense. How often should you shower? How often should you poop?
You should poop like once every day or two.
Yeah, 1.5 times a day on average, I feel like, is a good metric.
Yeah. I don't need to Google for this.
Bike helmet. All right. How often should you replace a bike helmet? 5 years.
It's not. I don't think mine is 5 years old yet.
Mine is 3 years old, I want to say.
Yeah, I think mine might be only 2 or 3 years old at this point. I bought it recently.
Yeah.
The one that I replaced was well over 5. The one I replaced might have been like 9 or 10 years old.
Oh, this side is funny. Helmets.org. When should I replace my helmet? And it has a list of questions. Did you crash?
Replace it. If you crash the helmet, helmets are one use. If they get hit by something, you have to replace it. It won't protect your head a second time.
But the second question is, did you drop it hard enough to crack it? Replace.
I've dropped it, but not hard enough to crack it.
Is it from the 70s?
No.
Replace it.
No, it's not. It's from
the outside just foam? Replace it. Does it not have a certification sticker in it? Replace it.
It has the sticker, and the outside is still plastic. Does the plastic actually help?
I think so.
Or is it just decorative?
So the plastic, I think, because from what I know, the PVC or whatever, that like the actual part of the helmet, the part of the helmet that matters,
the foam,
is destroyed by UV light. Like it's weakened over time. That's the main reason. Like
the
that's
plastic
the thing that weakens
is protecting it.
Yep. I don't think the plastic does anything else structurally. I don't know. Maybe it forms like an initial, like, I don't know. I don't know enough about helmets. I just replace my helmet every 4 or 5 years. So yeah, biking.
If you should find a bike ride near you, no matter how much you care about biking. You can just do the short route.
Yep. Go bike. All right. I think we're done. The Patreon thing. Uh-oh. I do not have the hiccups. Think I'll make a salad because I got the Fresh Direct. Of course, Emily, I think, had a plan for. I'll figure out what to eat. All right, let's see. And the patrons for this episode of Geek Nights are Alan Joyce, Heidi McNichol, Amanda Duchette, and Thomas Hahn, MyStady.com, William Eisenrose, Jeremy Miner, Life and Death and Love and Birth and Peace and War on the Planet Earth, a genuine bona fide electrified 6-car monorail, Nicholas Brandau, Captain Shingo, Rebecca Dunn, The Terrible Secret of Space, 421 Creations. Even if we were to pull out today, and if they were come take our base, Shervin Von Horrell, Roy Lavelle, James David White, Rochelle Montanona, Superboy, I paid $5 to make Rim say pickle, Sailor Vista, Matthew Smith, Don Schleich, Guitar Tavish, and Joe Star, Sean Yeager, Sam Corder, Clinton Walton, Ren from New Zealand, Ryan Parent, Drew Openlander, Brian Sidroni, Finn, Chris Midkiff, Chris Knox, Daniel Redman, Sean Klein, Chris Reimer, and Thomas Hahn. I'm working on the Utena show. Just give me time. I gotta put like the new pipelines together. We just gotta record some stuff, and it's coming. You'll get one at some point, probably shortly after PAX. But anyway, now I leave you with